Hello, hello. Just gonna put this on just so the hair is not in my face. No, I'll pick it up later. Actually, I'll pick it up right now. You believe in me, you're the only one for me. In this day. All right, so we got through a little bit of chapter 2. It was a bit of a disaster last time around, just because I was so undescribably tired. I'm feeling a little bit better now. So yeah, I was just thinking, I feel like a cool video idea would be just like showing off some of my vinyl records and stuff like that. I don't have a lot, and it's not like I have anything particularly like rare or noteworthy. But I mean, they're all cool things, you know what I mean, and they're all cool to me. I don't know. Perhaps one day in the future, I don't know. It's a fun little thing to talk about some of them for a little bit. I mean, a couple of them are like random jazz albums that I've like literally only listened to once, so I probably couldn't even say anything about it. But it's just for goofs, just for gaffs. All right. Well, let's get into it then. Virtue is the possession of the wise, well-versed. Virtue is possession of the wise, well-versed, and well-off. The exclusivity of virtue, Seneca writes, is the best thing about her. There is, he continues, about wisdom and the virtue it cultivates, a nobility and magnificence, and the fact that she is not a blessing giving to all and sundry. Without defining the cynic attitude by its negation, this foundational conceit of the educated person was clearly worth undermining from a cynic point of view. The cynic was not straightforwardly anti-culture either. Here it is more worth sounding a broader note of caution to avoid simplifying the object of the cynic counterculture critique. Insofar as street cynics later opposed the paideia, or learned culture of Roman philosopher emperors such as Julian, they were confronted with a cultural phenomenon that was complex and ambiguous in its operations. As Peter Brown argues, paideia should not be understood simply as a system of exclusion by which the Roman nobility and political elite asserted their exalted status as bearers of culture and refinement. If that were the case, the task for cynics would be relatively straightforward. All cynic practice would need to do to reveal the paideia is an artifice, a set of arbitrary cultural values by which the nobility exalts itself on false pretense. Cynics should then attack paideia as an agent of cultural oppression, but as a marker of nobility and system and decorum, paideia did not just exalt the powerful. In Brown's analysis, it controlled them by ritualizing their responses and by bridling their raw nature through measured gestures. Its rituals helped regulate the violence of imperial power, submitting it to convention, rendering it predictable. Its aristocratic protocols operated against a tide of horror that lapped close to the feet of educated persons. Consequently, or so one might conclude, the task of the cynic cannot be to destroy the pretensions of culture and leave it there, since that would open the way to unbridled imperial power. Cynicism, from this point of view, is not just anti-culture. It attempts a more exacting critique of the system of power that culture is imbricated with and supportive of. feel like my mustache isn't growing in the middle here. It's okay. I mean, it's not okay because I'm gonna shave it, so it's just the mustache. But fearless speech. The hostility to intellectual culture found in Cynic philosophy should also not be essentialized as if Cynics were just a bunch of anti intellectuals with an axe to grind. Cynics were not so hostile to attempt to understand the world in which they lived. They were merely suspicious of the common prejudice that the world can be adequately understood by adopting the conversation of rationality endorsed by a particular philosophical school. Um, as a philosopher of contingency, the cynic is said to live without certainties and does not mourn their absence. The cynic's life could be described as an experiment, determined to perturb and explore the boundaries of ordinary existence. It is in this sense that cynic philosophy constitutes a dialogue with the contingencies that shape the material conditions of existence. As has been argued. Indeed, to switch for a moment to work of Malachi Bakhtin, Diogenes can be approached as an early player in a wider revolution that would place immediate context and experiment at the center of literary forms that otherwise prioritize the relatively fixed parameters of tradition. As Bakhtin interprets the unpredictable and open ended arrangements of unofficial thought, represented most notably by the Cynics, were beginning to contest everything with official air, with its distant gaze and determination to ignore low culture in its favor of its own unimpeachable hierarchy of values. For Diogenes, this experiment often takes the form of a hostile engagement, where the philosopher sends out provocations, examines the report provoked by them, and comes to understand the limits these retorts reflect. The challenges or the challenge to improvise a way of life that can sustain itself alongside and outside these limits by rejecting the consultations. Oh, shoot. No, you're not throwing it off it. You're not throwing off the reading flow at all, man. I watched that. Let's see. Maybe. I could actually check to see like the time span I watched. I want to eat your pancreas because I've seen it too, and that movie goes insane. Here, let's see. I want to eat your pancreas. I want to eat your pancreas. Oh shoot. Okay, so I watched I Want to Eat Your Pancreas around summer of 2020, and maybe could have been August. It could have been July. I feel like it might have been August. But dude, that was crazy. One of the like most abrupt and like painful like twists ever. Like it was like a shock. Like I was shocked when they like pulled that out of their hat. And I mean, to me, it was just because I had seen Your Lie in April. It was kind of just like a Your Lie in April type vibe. But like obviously, like that ending, like you know, twist was not what I was expecting. So there was like that. But in terms of like the final sequence when they're kind of like talking to each other despite her being dead, it was kind of similar to like what Your Lie in April did. And I was just like, oh man, these are giving me Your Lie in April vibes, which isn't a bad thing because Your Lie in April is probably the most important thing I've ever watched in my entire life. But yeah, that is such a good film. I'm like really glad you watched it. Bro, bigger tragedy. I mean, for sure. I remember the conversation he had with her mother at the end was like tragic, and I remember like being in tears. Like I was already in tears at this point just because of what had happened. Oh wait, no, I don't think I started crying until he had the conversation with her mother, with like I think it was like the diary or something, right? She gave him something or he gave her something, and then it like it was like the first time he had like cried about it too, or something like that. No, but I Want to Eat Your Pancreas is like a classic, you know. So I'm really happy that you were able to watch it. I'm trying to see on here if I watched anything else. I definitely, if you're like in the mood for, a sad movie type, I definitely recommend The Grave of Fireflies. Maybe you've heard of it, maybe you haven't heard of it. It's a Studio Ghibli film, so you know sadness than like from the pancreas type sadness. It's like kind of like depressing, and it's like a period piece. So I definitely recommend it. Like without a doubt, there's some like insane symbolism, and some of the like best character work ever. It's like legit tragic. It's like really difficult to watch at times. Um, Here, let's see. I had one more here. Oh, I think it's called Sabuki Bisco. Let me just make sure. Sabuki, because I watched something over spring break. No, okay, that one I have not watched yet. Oh no, I didn't add it to this list. Hold on, I need to go on Mal really quick. Shoot, I even hope I like logged it in, because this would be like tragic if I didn't, because I know I gave it like a 10 or an 8. It's like a quick 45-minute movie. Um, Super, super good. Some of my favorite voice actors in the game right now are in it, and it came out like relatively early. Not really, I guess like early, but I think it came out in like 2014. Oh yeah, yeah. Here, let's see. I'll show you the. Let's see, what's it called? Into the Forest of Fireflies. Into the Forest of Fireflies. You'll probably recognize like this character. Here, I'll pull it up. If like my phone will load. Um, okay, my phone's just being like awful, but whatever I just said, it's that movie. Sorry, let me try pulling it up again. I also remember the song in the end credit scene of "I Want to Eat Your Pancreas" being like Heat too. Into the Forest of Fireflies. Sorry, I gotta log this down for myself too. Into the Forest of Fireflies. Right? Yeah. Okay, awesome. And let me into the forest of 2011. 2011. Here it's like here. Can I like how do well it's just the guy with the freaking mask on. Maybe you've seen that character, but it is like literally it is like such a fantastic film. The premise is really cool. It is also like really sad. Um, yeah, yeah, I definitely recommend that, like without a doubt. Um, Shoot, I need to hop on my game, dude. I have not been like watching enough anime. Like I finished Spy X Family. I finished Love Is War. I'm watching this like kind of like whatever romance, like whatever. It's not nothing crazy, but I still have like so many things, on my to watch list, on my watching list that I haven't watched since like week 1 of spring season. Um, and then with summer season coming around, we got Danmachi season 4. We've got The Devil is a Part-Timer season 2 after like almost 10 years. Wait, I'm exaggerating. It hasn't been 10 years, maybe like 8, 7 years since season 1 came out. We've got Kakegurui Twin coming out. We've got Rent a Girlfriend season 2 coming out this summer. We've got Made in Abyss season 2. Made in Abyss season 2, aka the masterclass of anime world building season 2. The lolly weird stuff, like author needs to get his head on straight, because he like the thing is like he kind of created such like an enticing world, but he also just kind of like is into lollies, and it's like really weird, but still like the characters are great, you know. it's like legit hard to watch sometimes, not because of that, but also just because of like how like gruesome some of the scenes are. In terms, there's this one arc, and I'm sure if you've heard of Made in Abyss or you watched it, you know what scene I'm talking about. Yeah, that's coming out this season, and then that's just like the returners. Like I haven't even like looked at any of the new stuff that's coming out that I should give a try, just because I haven't looked at any of the trailers yet. um yeah. So, and like I haven't even touched Pokemon in a while, and I know it's getting good, which I'm like so happy it is. But like I have so much to catch up on. But yeah. Shield Hero, or I mean, Love is War. Finished Love is War. That one got a tear out of me. It didn't fall, but the season finale was everything I wanted. The payoff was huge. I was like in my chair. I was going up and down, so hype. And Shield Hero, I watched the first episode of season 2. I watched the entirety of season 1, and like it was like okay. I just don't really like. I don't know, like after like ReZero is like the main isekai, and like Mushoku Tensei is the main isekai. So like any other isekai, I feel like is just like, dude, it's either like you're like a parody of the isekai genre, or you're taking yourself too seriously. Because I feel like in order for like an isekai to succeed and to like genuinely like succeed and have people take it seriously, like it needs to be something special, or like it's world building something. Because like ReZero has its um you know oh frick, what's the superpower called, return by death mechanic thing that's like crazy, some like amazing characterization with Subaru and Ran and Amelia. And so it's got that going for it. Like I think most anime fans can agree that ReZero is the isekai on the market right now. But the thing is, Mushoku Tensei will probably, I think, one up that eventually. I mean, season 1 was fat. Like I've never seen animation like that. The world building was crisp. Like they knew how to establish a power system without like telling us, and that's like the main thing. The characters are really good. There's like some edgy, questionable things happen in it, but I'm glad they leave it in, because then it's like conversation and stuff like that. But no, I cannot wait to see where that story goes. And I just love the pacing. I love the animation. I love the characters, and Mushoku Tensei is going to be like on top. And I don't know, man, just Shield Hero is just like I like Raptalia, I guess, or whatever her name is. Like she's cool, but I just don't like the main character, and I don't like the other side characters, and like I don't know. I don't know, man. And like the fact that they delayed it like 2 times, I thought like animation would be like peak, but it's like mid. I don't know. I think I just need to give it a try again. I think I just need to get back into it, and we'll see. But season 1 or episode 1 was really disappointing, from what I remember. So that's that. That's that. Um, let's see. Where were we? I'll just go to this paragraph right here. The most famous anecdote of cynic provocation before the forces of officialdom is the story of Diogenes' exchange with Alexander the Great. When he was sunning himself, Alexander came and stood over him and said, "Ask me for anything you want." To which he replied, "Stand out of my light." This anecdote has been subject to many different readings. It has been taken as an example of cynic integrity before power, of its commitment to the poverty in the face of considerable temptation, a sign of divine virtue in its Christianized interpretation, or as a demonstration of the philosophical independence and higher sovereignty of Cynic philosophy, a status that even Alexander recognized according to another anecdote from Laertius's lives. Alexander is reported to have said, "Had I not been Alexander, I should have liked to be Diogenes." This anecdote might be further understood as offering an example of Cynic commitment to critique, if not protest before power, where Diogenes spoke truth to power consistently and unflinchingly. We might take Diogenes as a model protester in this respect and conclude that contemporary cynicism should, if it can learn anything from its ancient ancestor, learn this: speak truth to power in all circumstances. Do not revere the powerful. Do not tone down your language when put to the test. And yet, this could be a mistaken view, since the anecdote speaks for Alexander as much as it does for Diogenes. It speaks of his clemency, his wisdom before this decidedly rude representative of philosophy. It shows that Alexander can still be touched by the call of philosophy. This anecdote also risks downplaying the situated craftiness of Cynic philosophy, which was certainly brash and definitely courageous, but did not reduce itself to commandments such as one might find represented here, namely the notion that a good Cynic will always speak truth to power. Fearless speech, otherwise known as parrhesia, parrhesia has nonetheless become a recurring theme in the accounts of Cynic philosophy. It is predominant in Foucault's interpretation. As a Cynic theme, it draws attention to the audacity of Cynic philosopher who speaks freely, though the term applies to others too, most notably Socrates, who conducted free speech as dialogue. The term recurs throughout Greek and Roman literature, the describing a mode of interaction. Wait, hold on. I need to see something real quick. Oh yeah, we're good. In which free men might indulge. Though parrhesia clearly took different forms of antiquity, cynicism stretched its basic definition in terms of who might partake, which pushing this mode of speech towards its limit at a point where which free speech ceases to be tolerated in dialogue and is replaced by violent reprisal. Reprisal? Since freedom to practice parrhesia was generally associated with the rights of the citizen or the privileges of the aristocrat, it is argued that Diogenes' claim of parrhesia, issuing as it did from the bottom of the social hierarchy as an improvised non-citizen, was a bold maneuver. Parrhesia was remodeled by removing it from an elite context governed by conventions of decorum and putting it to use within a setting that refused these restraints and should not have been practicing parrhesia in the first place. Cynicism distorted the basic nature of parrhesia in other respects too. Fearless speech. I feel like I should just say fearless speech instead of parrhesia, just because then it's like fearless speech, so we know what it is. Fearless speech depended on an agreement between interlocutors to bear the other's free speech without reprisal. Cynic philosophy stretched this agreement to its breaking point. In basing its true use of fearless speech so heavily on the form of an insult, the Cynic fearless speecher plays at the very limits of the uh, parrheistic contract, whatever, as Foucault puts it. Unlike Socrates, who in many respects represents the ideal Western educator, a cynic such as Diogenes of Sinope would not be so courteous to engage in respectful dialogue in the drawn-out, carefully regulated sense of that word, where mutual interaction depends at least on pretense of mutual regard. Diogenes' speech poured forth heedless of whether or not one consented to its onslaught. This required courage, though a different sort, while Socrates risked the irritation, if not anger, of his companions by persuading them through dialogue, trickery, and irony of their ignorance, of one not knowing what they claimed to know. The cynic risked the vengeance of his auditors more openly, berating them to reject and despise everything they accept to be true and proper. Whereas the Socratic teacher plays with an interlocutor's ignorance to generate a thirst for wisdom, so as to cause them to apply themselves more earnestly and thoroughly to their education. Diogenes seeks to hurt their pride. Dialogue Dialogue is replaced by diatribe and insult, or is to suspend altogether, whereupon the cynic exhibits him or herself shamelessly before the public, causing deliberate offense, while Socratic irony seems to create a sense of existential doubt among friends and acquaintances. The cynic gives cause to riot, while Socratic irony seeks to create a sense of existential doubt among friends and acquaintances. Um, okay. The cynic gives cause to riot. The cynic speaks fearlessly only after becoming, or as to become, free of attachments. The cynic must attempt to become free of duties that function as constraints. For most all among all these constraints are the operations of the conscious, the self-government, which, as Foucault argues, was perfected during a long interval of Christendom and bequeathed upon modernity to become the key means by which its modern and late modern inheritors are constrained. Again, a word of caution is necessary to suggest that the cynic seeks to become free of these shackles. Chattels might give the impression that the perfect cynic would be kind of a sociopath, bold, disinhibited, free of remorse. This character would be at liberty to pursue his or her philosophy of defiance or without hindrance. Cynic philosophy was, however, far more imbricated in and appreciative of social norms. It set out to question then this deception of the cynic as a kind of sociopath would allow the cynic. The cynic is committed to the complex unraveling of social norms. Cynic philosophy was not modeled on the idea of straightforward escape as if it were a matter of breaking loose, stepping outside, or turning one's back on convention. For the cynic, escapees always carry more baggage than they realize. Impoverishment. The difficulty of escape is exemplified by the practice of cynic impoverishment. This activity demonstrates that the pursuit of freedom, a life free of attachments, has paradoxical effects. The cynic begins by stripping down existence, getting rid of anything that might be considered superfluous, casting off material goods that would tie the cynic down through his or her dependence on them. Dude, I'm so materialistic. I don't even care. I couldn't do this. I couldn't get rid of all my things. I like things. In a notorious anecdote, Diogenes even threw away his wooden cup, which was said to be one of his last belongings. Dang, not the cup. Having observed a boy drink from his hollowed hand, Diogenes found his cup to be yet another unnecessary burden. As Foucault interprets, the cynic of this more radical persuasion was always looking for possible further destitution. Destitution, huh? I wonder what that could mean. Let's look it up. Destitution. Oh, okay. So without the basic necessities of life, not having. He was always looking for states of not having. Cynic poverty was a dissatisfied poverty, which strives to get back to the ground of absolutely indispensable. It was an indefinite poverty, endless at work on itself. This deliberate and progressive impoverishment committed the cynic to a life of dirt and dishevelment, affording an independence of sort, liberation from the trappings of wealth and civilized society. Though the pursuit of impoverishment also tied the cynic to his maternally advantaged superiors. Um, it imposed a vicious dependence of its own as the cynic became increasingly reliant on the alms of others. The stigma this entailed should not be underestimated given the social context, where personal horror ranked so highly as a virtue among free men. To court dishonor in such a way was a radical test of the cynic's resolve to live a different life. It ensured the cynic's poverty was more than a romantic affection. The cynic deliberately seeks the shame of penury. Presumably, those who overcome the worst humiliation will achieve through the most thorough purging of all false codes of contact and notion of decency. The route to independence, rather oddly, then, is through the cynic's insufferable dependence on the charity of others. To enhance the effect, the cynic must learn to be resourceful. Oh, wait. To be resolutely ungrateful when it comes to alms, and to be indifferent to those who pass judgment. One portrait depicts Demetrius, a first century cynic of Corinth, refusing money from the Roman Empire. If you wanted to tempt me, he should have offered me the whole empire, the cynic responds. I think right there we'll stop at the next section of the thing, which is the body educator. So cynic philosophy is rooted in the experience of the body, which embraces an essential ungovernable, which is essentially ungovernable, like the body, I guess. I don't know. I guess we'll read about it. Yeah. So when I got time to work on two ideas, the vinyl thing, the Breaking Bad Attack on Titan thing. I'm definitely gonna put Attack on Titan more on the front burners, just because, like I said, that's like a scrapped idea from a year ago, and I watched a video essay recently, and I've kind of been inspired. So that's that. Thank you for listening, and I'll probably see you sometime soon. Goodbye.